A new state-of-the-art missile was recently and successfully tested.
But here's the problem. Previous tests ended in radiation accidents and explosions.
A strike on Moscow, the aggressor's sky was set ablaze.
The response will be very serious, without exaggeration, if not downright staggering.
An unknown bright green object flew across the sky early this morning. An unidentified object streaked over Moscow.
Don't blame the mirror if your face is crooked.
Nuclear Burevestniks and Poseidons will strike Russia itself. Trump and Xi have made a decision. A mysterious fireball is already over Moscow. We'll show the footage. Putin fears being overthrown and is hysterical. Lavrov will be the first to fall, likely expelled from the Kremlin. Meanwhile, the NATO army is already at Russia's borders. That's why they're burning. Let's go.
Not long ago there was a test. A brand new, advanced, state-of-the-art missile with unlimited range and a nuclear propulsion system.
Yes, friends, that's the nasty little Kremlin Putin shaking his limp storm petrol at the whole world, together with Gerasimov.
The missile completed a multi-hour flight during which it covered a distance of 14,000 kilometers. And that's not even the limit, so...
To a nuclear station.
To a nuclear power station, yes.
No, well, it does sound pretty powerful, of course. The mega-continental, super-ballistic, archi-nuclear Burevestnik flew 14,000 kilometers. Well, that's it. Now America and Ukraine are definitely doomed.
Let them think about that for a moment.
Yeah, they've already thought about it. This is Russia, after all. This very nuclear Burevestnik is, above all, a deadly danger to Russia itself. Yeah, it is for them. It will kill the loyal Russians.
But here's the problem. Previous tests ended in radiation accidents and explosions. Russia's shield once again threatens the world and the Russians themselves.
But let's see how the Burevestnik has already killed Russians and how it will keep doing so. More on that in a minute.
Are you idiots or what?
Chapkorova Mekala. Right then, Putin presented a new Wunderwaffe, and it's nuclear too.
Underwater unmanned. For the unmanned underwater devices, Poseidon and...
Right away, Russian propaganda started working it. They say this Poseidon will blow America apart like a hot water bottle.
The apocalyptic scenario is as follows. A series of extremely powerful and devastating explosions occurring along the U.S. ocean coastline will inevitably lead to catastrophic destruction of American military bases as well as critical infrastructure. The massive waves generated by Poseidon will ultimately wash away the entire west and east coasts of the United States.
What storytellers? I can just see Trump now. Got tense. You Kremlin clowns.
Don't blame the mirror if your face is crooked.
Ugh, how rude. Alright, as for the Burevestnik, that's something else. Russian propaganda promises Armageddon for the planet. Now there's panic in Australia too, not just in the States.
Elusive and extremely deadly, with enough power to completely destroy an entire industrial facility, or even a small city district.
Alright, enough listening to this propaganda nonsense. Let's talk seriously. Actually, Putin has been fantasizing about an intercontinental nuclear Burevestnik since 2018. Here's what he was spouting 7 years ago. We
have begun developing new types of strategic weapons that do not use ballistic flight trajectories at all when heading toward their targets. Which means that in practical terms, missile defense systems are essentially useless and simply pointless against them.
So basically, there's nothing like it, as always.
This is, after all, a unique product that no one else in the world has. And
since 2017, testing of the Burevestnik missile has begun. And this, my friends, is a separate, indelible shame for the Russian Federation. Listen here.
Since then, tests of the petrol have repeatedly, on multiple occasions, ended in failure. Moscow is very carefully making efforts to hide them.
Is there anything to hide? A separate chapter is devoted to the 2019 petrol trials. This is truly wild. Here are the details.
In 2019, the Russian authorities conducted tests of the Burevestnik, which, by the way, ended in disaster. The missile exploded much earlier than planned, and in the process managed to increase the radiation levels in nearby cities dozens of times over.
Yes, Putin gave his own loyal Russians a mini Hiroshima back then. Naturally, Russian state TV likely kept silent about this.
Roshidromit acknowledged that radiation levels in Severodvinsk exceeded the norm after the explosion in Neonoksa, which killed 5 people. The spike was recorded on August 8th. The dose of gamma radiation was exceeded by 4.16 times, according to officials. Experts suggested that they might have been testing a missile, the 9M730 Burevestnik.
Once again, let's make this clear. Putin's Burevestnik was killing Russian citizens as early as 2019. In
August of 2019, there was a significant explosion at a test site located near Severodvinsk, during which 7 employees from Rosatom and the Ministry of Defense sadly lost their lives.
So what is the main point here? Why is the Burevestnik so dangerous for Russia itself? To put it simply, without going into technical details, it all comes down to the nuclear engine. By the way, the Americans, 30 years ago, they abandoned, let me emphasize, abandoned this technology because of the risk of radiation exposure. But Putin doesn't care about his own people. Russia, classic.
In fact, it's a flying mini Chernobyl, which means it acts like a small version of the Chernobyl disaster, but in the air. A flying Chernobyl, right? Because after it is released, this so-called radioactive exhaust is emitted into the atmosphere, which then pollutes the air and spreads radioactive contamination over a large area. So, essentially, it's a weapon for suicides.
Oh, a weapon for suicides. But honestly, that perfectly describes Putin.
Yes, for humanity, it would truly be an absolutely global catastrophe. For the world, it would be a global catastrophe.
By the way, the recent Burevestnik tests, which Putin promoted so much, also turned out to be a catastrophe for Russia. You remember the fairy tales they told, right? Gerasimov was telling those stories, wasn't he?
A range of 14,000 kilometers, which is already impressive, and that's not even the limit.
Yeah, what were they again? 14,000 kilometers. At this point, you know, the noodles are falling off our ears.
The missile remained in the air for a brief period of less than 2 minutes and covered only 35 kilometers, ultimately leaving behind an unimaginable radioactive trail.
Of course, it's a catastrophe, a global one. But I repeat, we as martyrs will go to heaven and they will just die like dogs.
Well, all right, let's leave the Burevestnik aside. Maybe at least the super nuclear Poseidon torpedo? This is Putin's unreal invincible weapon. What do you think about this? Well, Russian propaganda is absolutely foaming at the mouth, loudly and repeatedly insisting that Poseidon is basically a terrifying doomsday weapon.
A single powerful Poseidon would be enough to destroy an American aircraft carrier group. Moreover, for the Poseidon to be launched, the submarine carrier doesn't even need to enter the Atlantic.
My goodness, what fantasists. But let's stick to the facts. It turns out that, at one point, the Poseidon also exploded and burned like a sparkler or a Bengal light. In 2019, there was a disaster on the unique submarine AS-12, which, according to one version, was practicing interaction with various weapon systems, simulating a doomsday weapon that did not yet exist. The Poseidon project, which ultimately ended in an accident, the loss of the AS-12, and the death of the crew. Telling, isn't it?
I just want to say, are you idiots or what?
We aren't. But your people put in all these super launches and tests of unreal nuclear and ballistic missiles? That's definitely insane. Let me remind you, for example, what happened with the much-hyped Sarmat.
I want to emphasize in particular that only domestic units, components, and parts were used in the creation of the Sarmat.
Oh, that's pretty obvious. Sarmat is actually a whole separate meme, and it really has no analogs at all.
Sarmat is also a crucial part of the nuclear triad. Not only did it fail to launch, but it also destroyed a significant part of the test site by exploding right in the launch silo.
But, you know, the main joke is something else. The thing is, in Russia, they really believe that with all these tales, threats about the Burevestnik and Poseidon and nuclear threats, they managed to bring Trump's America to its knees. Basically, they scared America. Just listen to what Volodyn is saying.
Those abroad who seek to harm us should be preparing themselves to bow in submission before our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, just so that this powerful weapon is not used.
By the way, the alcoholic Medvedev has just pulled another stunt again.
He got drunk, as we say, drank vodka and started a brawl.
Well, yes, as always, the hangover Demotos declared that Poseidon is a doomsday weapon. And of course, he decided to threaten Europe with a strike. This time, Belgium was the one in the crosshairs.
Medvedev suggested testing the super torpedo on Belgium.
So, the Belgians gave him such a response, it was something else.
If President Vladimir Putin launches a missile at Brussels, it will be a strike at the very heart of NATO, and then we will level Moscow to the ground.
Yeah, that's cool, but you know, the most important and most painful thing for Putin, the most humiliating, is Trump's reaction. He put the Kremlin down, personally humiliated Putin, with just a single reminder. essentially with just a single phrase, a single thought.
The President of the United States reminded everyone that one of the most powerful nuclear submarines is currently located not far from Russia. According to him, instead of making missile threats, the Russian leader should end the war, which, I quote, was supposed to last 1 week, but is now in its 4th year.
So even after this, Trump doesn't let up. You know, apparently Putin's nuclear posturing really got to him, and right after meeting with Xi Jinping, he does this.
Trump ordered the immediate resumption of nuclear weapons testing. Since other countries are conducting testing programs, I have instructed the Department of Defense to begin testing our nuclear weapons on an equal footing.
Not bad. Putin got himself into trouble. Well, now for the funny part. You remember that nasty little Putin? Besides everything else, he's also
A coward.
A coward!
And a coward.
right on with Kazaro. So Putin got scared by Trump's statements.
Petrol is up my ass.
Yeah, he got so scared that Peskov had to cover for him. Like, what petrol are you talking about? What Poseidon? There's no nuclear threat at all. It's all not true. You guys just imagined it. Come on, what's wrong with you?
This is not actually a nuclear test at all. Not in any way. All countries are currently developing their defense systems, but this is not, in any way, a nuclear test.
Listen, he sure knows how to talk smoothly. But no, there's no getting out of it this time. Especially since some interesting things are happening near the Russian Federation's border. Finland is moving against Russia. Here you go, sign for it. The Finnish army is starting exercises near the Russian border. Finland will conduct large-scale military exercises involving about 15,000 servicemen, which will last from November to December in regions including those bordering Russia. This was reported by the Finnish army. Well, what did you expect? Russia has been provoking for a very long time. They've been trying to provoke Finland. You remember all that nonsense, right?
It's quickly turning into an even faster and more alarming hotbed of fascism than what we have witnessed in Ukraine. We are fully prepared and stand ready for any possible developments that might occur in the near future.
Well, ready how exactly? There's real panic in Karelia. The Russians are preparing to meet the Finns, so everything's going to plan, right? Karelia's authorities are forming patrols to guard the border with Finland, which will send 15,000 to the border regions. 1,000 of their soldiers for exercises. But the real chaos, of course, isn't in Karelia, it's in Moscow. Moscow is burning, and an unknown fireball was spotted in the sky over the Russian capital. Here are the details.
An unknown bright green object flew across the sky early this morning. Residents saw a dazzling green flash in the sky. The unidentified object streaked over Moscow and disappeared, leaving a bright trail behind. Eyewitnesses are debating what it was.
This was in the sky over Moscow. No one knows. Well, maybe the Burevestnik exploded again, who knows? But one thing can be said for sure. Ukrainian drones made Moscow burn.
A strike on Moscow. The aggressor's sky was set ablaze. The night of October 26 was marked by one of the most massive drone attacks on Russian territory during the entire war. A total of 82 drones were detected in Russian airspace at once.
And here there is only one conclusion. The capital of the Russian Federation, friends, it has stopped being a safe rear for the bunker dwellers. The Ukrainian armed forces will find, reach, and neutralize them.
Moscow can no longer consider itself a rear area. Both frontline airfields and key targets deep inside Russia are now under threat. Last night was overall the hottest yet for the Russian capital. According to official data, up to 40 drones were shot down over the region, coming in waves for almost 6 hours straight.
Yes, the Ukrainian armed forces are doing an excellent job. Important point, do you want a real captured Russian strike drone QB for yourself? Then I have some very good news for you. The thing is, the Achilles unit of the 429th Separate Unmanned Systems Regiment urgently needs to buy a van to transport ammunition due to a critical necessity. Therefore, attention, a contest is being launched for a truly unique item. A nearly undamaged Russian strike drone Cobb captured by this unit is up for grabs via the QR code. Right now, at this very moment, it's on your screens. As for the participation conditions, they are in the description below this video. And of course, glory to the armed forces of Ukraine. But it's not just about Moscow. In Belgorod region, things are lively. Ukrainian forces hit a dam. 4 divisions of Russian troops will be submerged.
In the Belgorod region, there's a real flood. After the dam was breached, Russian equipment is sinking near Shebekino and in the Volchansk direction. The soldiers are complaining. Logistics have been disrupted. Many positions have been flooded. Now the elements are fighting against those who came to foreign land. And
So, in a situation where Putin is objectively really facing collapse on all fronts, the bunker moth is starting to behave especially irrationally. Here in this video, he says that war is in the genes of Russians. But the most interesting thing isn't what Putin says. The most interesting thing is his movements.
My God, look, you really didn't know, right, that your grandpa was like that. And now you fight just like your grandpa did.
Yeah, it's interesting. By the way, do you remember the boy Nikita? That's right. The one whom Putin unexpectedly kissed on the stomach? By the way, according to one version voiced by former KGB officer Sergei Girnov, the real Putin might have been killed back then, in 2006, after that kiss.
some even say that the real Putin has long been gone from the Kremlin. That Putin was killed in 2006 when he kissed little Nikita on the belly button, when everyone realized that basically he was losing his mind and that he might start kissing those boys. Next time, it could happen on every street corner, and everyone would understand that basically the man has some issues.
Well, be that as it may, the mark from the Kremlin devil certainly did not pass without a trace for this Nikita. This boy grew up, and now he is recruiting Russians for the war. Here's what journalists managed to find out. The Telegram channel, We Can Explain, found the only photo of the boy all grown up. Judging by it, he is now conducting classes himself and preparing students for war. Nikita Konker is 23 years old. A few years ago, Konker graduated from Gymnasium No. 2 in Kolomna, then left the Moscow region and now lives in Ryazan. Meanwhile, journalists calculated that during his time in power, Putin has kissed at least 29 other people's children. But, you know, Bunker Molly really doesn't have time for that now. He's got one thing developing and progressing here. Such panic and fear. One of them.
Please hand me the microphone. You'll stab someone now.
And stab, yes, they could stab you. And this fear, it just eats Putin up from the inside. This is already real Putin paranoia. And that's very interesting.
A coup in the Kremlin. The biggest fear. Putin's, writes the Telegraph. Putin is afraid of losing control over the transfer of power. A scenario similar to the Wagner PMC mutiny in 2023 has become a long-term source of fear within the system. And
now Putin's hand-controlled FSB has already found a victim for repression. So to speak, the one to blame for the upcoming coup. Here, it's the same faces in the ring, Mikhail Khodorkovsky with.
The FSB is accusing Mikhail Khodorkovsky and the Anti-War Committee in London of preparing a violent seizure of power. This accusation points not so much to a real threat as to the growing vulnerability of the system. Time is not on its side.
Yes, it's amusing. You know, I'm not going to go into the whole background of the relationship between Putin and Khodorkovsky right now.
As for Khodorkovsky, you know, I've already spoken about this. Mikhail Borisovich was supposed to... He was required by law to write the appropriate document. A petition for pardon.
I also won't be giving a historical overview of the Yukos case or Khodorkovsky's time in prison. I won't even idealize Mikhail Borisovich because, friends, when it comes to the Russian opposition, let's be honest, there are a lot of questions about the so-called Russian opposition. But that's not the point here. How pitiful and insignificant Putin looks in this situation. Now he's sicking his loyal FSB dogs on Khodorkovsky, who has long been living in London.
Experts call such actions a sign of Putin's new sense of vulnerability. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst noted.
The Kremlin is paranoid. Putin is looking for enemies to strengthen his regime.
So let's go over this again. Putin is trying to shore up his regime by again going after Khodorkovsky and the not very effective Russian opposition. Bravo! Brilliant solution. Putin style. Oh.
The fact that the Kremlin's paranoia has intensified is also evidenced by the recent accusation from Russia's FSB against Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who now lives in London. And 22 members of the Russian Anti-War Committee have been accused of preparing a coup d'etat. They have officially been charged with the violent seizure of power as well as creating a terrorist organization. And...
By the way, Khodorkovsky himself made a very interesting point, in my opinion, about Putin's pathological fear of his own generals and military commanders.
The Kremlin is afraid of popular military commanders. They're afraid someone from the army could emerge like a Bonaparte, who, following Prigozhin's example, would redirect the troops. But
you know what's interesting? This illness, this paranoia of Putin's is really getting worse. Now they're saying that Putin wants to get rid of, drumroll, do you know who? Here it is.
If I actually had a horse now, that would really be something interesting. But if the horse, on the other hand, had me, I'd probably be dead.
Yes, Putin wants to get rid of Lavrov.
He revealed some secrets to Lavrov. By the way, I spoke with him earlier today. We'll have to give him a formal warning, an official reprimand, because he didn't share these important secrets with us.
In general, I didn't understand something. Lavrov, he is also Putin's eternal friend. Fastened, attached, well, sort of my own.
Lavrov Sergei Viktorovich. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation is hereby awarded the prestigious Order of the Blessed Prince Alexander Nevsky of the First Degree, which is an honor bestowed by the Russian Orthodox Church.
Well, yes, the Arok fan Lavrov has a mistress, a second family.
This is Sergei Lavrov, and this is his mistress, Svetlana Polyakova. Formerly, she was once simply an employee of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is headed by Lavrov. But somehow it turned out that an ordinary diplomatic clerk owns, and here bend your fingers, apartments for 700 million in the center of Moscow, a luxury home in the Moscow region, apartments in Sochi, a luxurious Porsche and Mercedes. And all because she is Sergei Lavrov's mistress.
Would Putin really remove Lavrov over these trifles? Here are a few more details for the portrait of Sergei Viktorovich. Shameful.
A business trip to a diplomatic mission. That's exactly how it's written. A business trip at the age of 13.
Yes, Lavrov is a debauchee, that's clear, but he's not a military leader or Khodorkovsky. So why is Putin so afraid of him? What's the reason? Here's what it's about.
The Telegram channel Kremlin Snuffbox previously reported that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin was allegedly advised to arrest Lavrov for treason. According to the channel's sources, at the very least, he faces dismissal. In particular, Lavrov is allegedly accused of committing treason and of hindering the establishment of Russian-American relations.
Treason, you say? Well, to hinder... Lavrov really could have hindered Russian-American relations, considering the pronunciation of Russia's top diplomat. It's embarrassing, B1 level at best.
Another embarrassment for the Kremlin. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who is supposed to represent the country on the world stage, couldn't string two words together in English. Kristen, I want to make it clear that I sincerely apologize for this, but it seems you're not really listening. His ugly accent sounded so ridiculous that the NBC correspondent simply stopped listening to him and interrupted. For a diplomat of this level, it's not just a mistake, it's a real laughingstock for the whole world.
Oh, Lavrov, you've really gotten yourself into a mess in your old age. Honestly, it's so satisfying to watch these aging Kremlin spiders devour each other. And this is just the beginning, my friends. Take care.